Welcome everyone. I think you're just finished watching an incredible film. And we're lucky to be chatting here with the director, writer, director, actor. Is producer or yeah. Bradley Cooper. So first time I heard that you were doing this was at the beginning of this year that I bumped into you and
Yes.
we were just small talking and you said that you were doing a film about Bernstein. And I got very excited. I personally love Bernstein. To be honest, I didn't know much about his life. And also, I really thought you were doing, okay, he's going to do a bio. Okay, I'm mildly interested in my bios, but it's not necessarily my genre. And when I saw it, I was really shocked. I finished watching the film, and as I told you, I was shell-shocked because I could not articulate what it was that moved me so much. And first of all, I realized it was not a bio. It was something that was more subtle than a bio. It was because he's an extraordinary man in terms of his music. But clearly, and the story that you follow is very ordinary. It's a couple trying to make it work. So I have many questions, but the first one is, when you started doing this project, you were aware of that? Of the banality of life that is around these genius?
First of all, thank you for doing this. To have a hero of mine ask me about a film I've done is crazy, but I'm not going to belabor that miracle. Yes, I was very aware of it. I wouldn't say, I never categorized it as banality, but I categorized it as what could I relate to? And the whole idea of telling a story that we could all relate to, that then has the nuclear power of his music. And that's where I thought there was a potential for transcendent work, because the music's so transcendent. And if I could somehow tie together a movie that we could relate to that is harnessed by this person's music, then I thought something special could happen. So that was, yes, from the very beginning, that was actually the reason why I started the journey, was because of those two elements, trying to find how they will weave themselves into each other. And it was this relationship, this marriage between these two fascinating people, but this normal marriage, normal in the sense of human marriage that we could relate to. That would be the North Pole, that would be the anchor, and everything else would tie around it. I would say that would be the centrifuge, more like it, and everything would be wrapping around it.
And when I mean banality, I don't mean it in a pejorative way. I'm talking about is
everyday
life.
Yes.
It's just life, normal life.
Yes.
But you're talking about this nuclear explosion that is the music. Mm-hmm. But I think that in your film, what the nuclear explosion is that marriage. And it's so strong just because in many ways it's not normal in the sense that not everybody has to go through infidelities and stuff, but there are versions of that. Every couple has a conflict, no matter how close it is. And clearly this couple, with all the conflict they had, was deeply close. So so you knew that was your
their voices. Yes,
their
that
voices,
was
and also Leonard's voice, because as you say, it's documented, but there's this early period that is not that documented.
Yes.
And I was very intrigued about that because when I first saw you.
For 1 second, just so it's clear. There's one thing where they talk about their wedding night and that was the moment when they're talking over each other and they're laughing and they're finishing each other's sentences. We actually shot that scene, and then I was sad that it didn't make it in the movie, but it just didn't fit the rhythm. It's when they're dancing, when they're dancing the black and white with the Chinese food. The beginning of that scene was them retelling their wedding night. but it just didn't flow. But that was the crux where I heard them and I thought, oh, this is just infectious. I also found them infectious. I just found their world infectious.
Well, that's the thing, is, I mean, in that sense, it's extraordinary because they're so charming in many ways.
Yes.
You just want to hang out with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Desperately.
Except when they're fighting.
That's what.
And that's what makes everything very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And, well, yes, the film has very uncomfortable moments. First of all, I was also surprised the first time I heard that you have done a film that was A Star is Born. Because I didn't know, I always saw you as an actor. Actually, I've seen videos of you as a student, as a student actor. And then I heard that you have directed a film. My question is, because I admire many actors, directors. Of course, there's Cassavetes and stuff. There's one that I deeply admire that is kind of more buried his career as a director. That's Paul Newman. And when you knew that you were going to direct?
It was more about knowing I wanted to direct ever since I was a child. It was really directing more than acting. I just didn't allow myself to dream that big. But it was David Lynch, more what David Lynch was doing than was John Hurt and Anthony Hopkins that really intrigued me. But I never really even gave myself permission, quite honestly. And then I was lucky, so I pursued acting, but every time I would get a job, I would just stay on set and learn as much as I can and soak in, because I was just fascinated by it. And then I was just able to have relationships with the filmmakers I was working with, where they would open up their process and really allow me to be a part of it, like David O. Russell and Clint Eastwood and Guillermo del Toro. So I was just able to be a student for all these years, always knowing that I just love filmmaking. I love it so much.
The interesting thing is that I said before actor-director, but clearly then you're a director who happens to act.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I think so as well, because as great as you are as an actor, your voice as a director is incredibly strong. When you did A Star is Born, it's a film that it's very gutsy, and it's a film that is very, in many ways, uncompromising in the context of the story. But you had a safety net.
Yes.
And you had a safety net in the sense that you were telling a story that it was proven that it could work. And then you come to do this, and this is what I'm saying, that you're a director actor, because you do this, and it's a film that in many ways should not work. Because you know what is, it's not that I'm curious about the page, because it's so much about the filmmaker's vision. It's as if while you were writing, you were watching every single thing. How was the process of that relationship with
It's exactly that.
writing?
It's exactly what you said. The way I sort of write, and I wrote this with Josh Singer, who's a wonderful writer, but the way that we would write would be, I would always then speak the lines afterwards. We would always talk them out. I'd love to hear the rhythm of it. And then I would go back, and every night for all the years, I would try to play the movie in my head, shot by shot, and see how far I could get. And that's sort of process that I always do every day after work. Before I go to bed, I'll try to play the movie in my head. How far can I get, like a game almost. And then by doing that over and over and over for years, and I start writing to that. It's all one thing. And the way the script always reads is like as if I'm shooting, if you're watching it. And I actually try to like calm down with that, because then you have like 3/4 of a page of just, direction rather than dialogue, and then the script, in the studio goes, "Why, this is fucking too long." And you're like, no, watch, it's really, I can take 30 pages out tonight. Description. It's very much the same thing. That's why I wouldn't know where to put the camera if I didn't write it.
Yeah, but it's this thing, you have this vision, and I know how it has to look, I know how it has to feel. I'm not going to cover more than what I need, just in case of.
That's right.
And that's terrifying. I don't know how you said that when they shoot you were very secure. I admire you even more. It would be
Maybe
terrifying.
something had something to do with it. I was Lenny, you know? I think that had something to do with it, Alfonso, honestly.
Okay, but speaking
I
of
really
Lenny,
think so.
No, I guess so. I cannot even imagine. I don't dare to go to that part because it's how he does it. He already did it as a director. That is, this film is really a challenge, and on top of that, you are this guy. You're inside. You have to be looking inside out and outside in. How do you do that?
It was just preparation, you know, a tremendous amount of preparation and work with wonderful artists, getting the voice and then the prosthetic exactly that I believed it's a human being and believing that it's my voice, not an accent, and then just working. And then because, you know, you're writing the script and you're working all the time, you're living into these scenes and you're visualizing how it's going to look so you understand where you fit. But his boldness and his music and the way he lived his life, you know, I would show up to work early, right, to get, for Lenny to be done before crew call, and the crew was kind enough not to laugh at me every day when I would be like, you know, so we'll put the dolly in, you know, whatever I was doing. That's not, oh, thank God I didn't talk like that. So that was bad Lenny. But, you know, but that's what I was doing all day, was, you know, depending on how old Lenny was, the day was a little slower.
Speaking about old, obviously the beginning, it opens with a huge, it's super exuberant the way it opens.
Right.
The mobile camera,
Yes.
connecting shots,
Yes.
going into this whole thing.
Yes.
And then, as he matures, everything starts changing.
Yes.
I want to ask you about the voice.
Yeah.
When you spoke for the first time, I have to confess, I said, nah, he didn't speak like that. And then I realized, how do I know? I never heard, what you saying about it being documented before, I never heard young Leonard Bernstein. And suddenly when I see you, that transition of time, says, yes, that's how I am used for Bernstein, how he talks. But in many ways, and I don't know how documented is this,
Yeah.
in terms of film, for me, it has to do with this exuberance and suddenly Bernstein finding his voice. I don't know if it was a conscious decision, if it was something that was documented, or how, because it's very distinctive, the difference between the voices.
Yeah, well, his voice lowered an octave as he got older, obviously because of all the smoking.
Okay.
You know, and he had a deviated septum, so he was always had problems. He was an asthmatic child, that's why he didn't go to the war. But no, there's a wonderful tape of him and Aaron Copland leaving the record that's in the movie for Jerry Robbins. And that was the template for the young voice. You know, that was beautiful. It was, I was like, wow, this is gold.
For the young
voice, yeah. And so that was one of the things that I studied all the time. I think that was the main one. That was the beautiful 3.5 minute of him just leaving a message for Jerome Robbins.
Yes, but that's
at
another
25
thing
years
I'm
old.
talking about, the boldness, because the safety way of doing it is don't change that voice because then there's going to be an inconsistency.
Yeah, of course.
And
although it would have been crazy to get that low voice. You're right. The whole thing was you're right. You know, I'm asking a lot. You're right.
no, it's just
almost like there's a new character in color.
there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is well, yes. In many ways, the
But the melody's the same.
melody is the same.
Yeah.
No, because the character is the same.
Yes.
Everything remains the same. The energy in which you approach the scenes is different. I mean, in that early part, you have this almost fantasy scene.
Yes.
In the,
As a filmmaker. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, you
yes.
have this fantasy
Yes.
scene, and then everything starts to become. I mean, this is a film that goes from a dance number with sailors dancing into that heartbreaking death of of his wife, and not only that, the whole impact, the whole family. that relationship with his daughter, that is, in many ways, redeems him a lot.
Yes.
You know, because he's, another thing you're doing, you have done it before in your previous film. Apparently, you like that stuff. Characters that they are not perfect, far away from perfect. And in many ways, you should not like them. And you manage, and I think has to do in this one, in this specific one, that relationship with his daughter. That relationship came early on, or because it's as if you're in one gear, and you start seeing all these transgressions that he's doing, and then the presence of his daughter comes, and that relationship that is part of the family, but in many ways is as if he's more honest. You know, he's been way more honest with his daughter than what he can be with himself.
Yes.
And that was, it was conscious already, this that change of gears.
Yeah, yes, of course. Well, you look, I mean, again, it's about how much real estate can you use. So we decided that let's take one of the children and make them be the foil for the children. That was Jamie, the eldest. And Jamie Bernstein wrote this wonderful book, Famous Father Girl, about her relationship with her father, and talked about that moment when he told her that he hadn't had any transgressions, and she thought that maybe he was lying. And so we wrote that scene based on that.
But in that scene, you see all of that.
Right. And that's the idea, is that it kills him to lie. And that is a redeemable thing, because he wants to tell the truth. And he chooses not to because he's abiding by what Felicia wants. But later when you see him, who does he call? He calls his daughter, and he's talking about his boyfriend's so cavalierly. You know what I mean? My beautiful little leprechaun, he's not even my type. And you're like, bro, it's your daughter. He's like, daddy. He's like, I know, I'm sorry. You know, it's like, he basically said it's the blow talking, but he didn't, you know. He's that, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a dragon. And that's what Felicia says in the black and white. You know, she says, you're a dragon. You can break me in two with your arms as weak as I am. And it's like he's the antagonist in many ways. She's the one that makes the journey. The same guy that plays the bongos on his butt to the waterfront is the same guy who dances with William at the end of the movie. He never changes. And what is this dragon? What is this? How this dragon breathes fire throughout his whole life? You know, what are the ramifications of all of that?
Yeah, you're right, because in many ways, it's her film.
Is what?
It's her film.
That's right. That's right.
She really goes through.
That's why we see her at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. We came all the way back so that it could be a shot that meant something, which is a reveal of her. Everything has to be to story. The scene is about her seeing that he's got no hate in his heart. That's what the scene is. Before I was doing like some weird concert shit, you know, that meant nothing. And so I brought everybody back in, and I said a prayer to Lenny in front of everybody, which was hard. Especially now because they're going, you're not Lenny. and then we did it. And by the way, it wasn't just me that had everything at stake. It was Mango and the whole London crew who was operating the technocrane.
That's the shot that's from behind.
It comes here.
Well, in front of him and goes.
Yeah, it's just upstage left, and then it comes like this, comes around like this, comes like that, then it goes there, 27 millimeter, and then it comes, and then it ends on that. And I did it. And it worked, and we got it.
Okay, and that was recorded live.
It was recorded live.
And what about the coverage? Because
So then everybody's freaking out. You know what I mean? It was like, even they finally were happy. Even one came up and said, like, you can't use yesterday. It was horrible. I said, no, I won't. So no, really, you were not conducting us. I said, we're the best in the world. We didn't need you. And you'll be able to cut it together. By the way, there was no click track. They were doing it to no click. I mean, it was nuts. And then after that, I just laid down a track, and I got those and they had so much energy. They were wonderful. You see how emotional they are when you see them. I mean, and I was behind it. I'm like freaking out, and Yannick was conducting them there, and I was behind the camera, jumping up and down like this. It was amazing. And then we put 2 cameras. We had another track for the timpanist and the chorus. So that was 1 take. So the other coverage we got in 1 take, and then Colin had a beat camera. We did the final thing of him bowing from back in the middle of the cathedral, and that was it.
But okay, yeah, you're talking about that, but that's already an achievement. The other thing is your conducting. Because even if you say that you're dismissing this whole thing as you work there, it is incredible your performance there. I mean, clearly you studied
Yes.
Bernstein. And my question is, and has to the best example that I can give, but applies to the rest of the film. Where was your limit between imitation and creation?
That is the question that I would ask myself as an actor all the time, especially because there is a video of him conducting.
I know.
Right. But if you watch them back to back, I'm not imitating it at all.
No,
You know,
you're not.
I actually allowed and that was the thing. I allowed myself to be open and calm, so that all of the preparation I did would be there for me to actually just trust that I could conduct the orchestra as whatever amalgamation or whatever connection there is between me and Lenny that happened. And the experience is that I just really got out of the way. And if I were to be honest, which I will right now, about what it felt like, it just felt like I went away and he came in and did it. And of course it was different because he never conducted the same way.
They're calling me, but sorry. I'm too interested now.
He never conducted the same way. In fact, he interpreted compositions throughout his life completely differently. It was destroyed by it and then praised by it. And so my experience was Lenny was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna come down now. You did the work. And that's what it felt like. And I was like, thank you, please God, thank you. And then he did it and he left. And I was like, okay, we'll do the next scene. That's how it felt. That is how it felt.
That's how it looks like. Now, but
it's true. When I look at we did this IMAX version and it's so big. And when I looked at it, Alfonso, it was the first. Honestly, I could not believe what I was looking at. I was looking in his eyes because in the IMAX you can really see it. I go, I don't know what. I don't remember that. It was yeah.
Well, but that applies also to the performance of the rest of the stuff, because you would say, okay, he's imitating Bernstein, but nevertheless, he's not, because suddenly this character has a life of its own. And how is that balance?
Yeah, because I sound like him. I'm not doing an imitation of him.
No, that's
the thing. Also, it's like it's not exactly the same rhythm. It became its own thing. So you start to study it. You wait for that moment. And Tim Monick, this incredible dialect coach, it's the magic that happens. It happened on American Sniper. It happened with Star Is Born, where the voice all of a sudden it clicks one day. It doesn't click. You're imitating, and then all of a sudden it clicks one day, and you can have a conversation without thinking about what you sound like, and that's when you're off to the races.
But you were starting with Dudamel. You're talking about Gustavo. But Gustavo's style is very different to Bernstein.
Yes.
It's more electric.
That's right.
And
more sort of
more contained.
He's like a
boxer. It's expansive.
Yes.
There you go. He's like a box, and he really knows how to knock out.
Yeah.
But so that was not influencing
No.
That okay.
But just the technicality of it all.
I see.
Do you see what I mean? Just literally, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is conducting? Oh, so it's keeping the tempo and making sure everybody knows when they come in, the bowing the same way, all that craziness.
Yeah, but there's the other stuff that is intangible.
Well, then, yes, that's right.
That is the thing.
And that's why Lenny was so special.
Yes.
Because he was somehow able to harness physically the music in a way that I made a movie about it. You know, that I dug it so much, you know. That
In many ways, you're
they asked you to
describing
come
your own
watch it.
film.
Yeah.
You're describing your own film. This whole thing, in which is not about just the tempo and the and conduct, this other thing that is intangible. And I think that the amazing achievement of this film is that intangible. I think it's all of us. We end up with this
And
intangible.
I saw many. Roma is one of my favorite movies. And I saw maybe 2 or 3 of your Q&As, and I remember you talking about sometimes you don't even know what it is that the reason you did it until after you've done it, and then you see it and you realize what it meant. And you've just trusted what it was supposed. You trusted the road, and it doesn't tell you to after. You said it. I don't know if you remember that.
Probably was way less entertaining than tonight.
And when you said that, that made so much sense to me about trusting what something is telling you to do as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, without having to cerebrally define it, and that it will do it for you later. And I don't know, I took that page many times. I've never said, this is the first time I've told you that, but when you said it, it was like something that shot through me when you said that at one of these Q&As. Because it's true, because it is giving over to the art of it. Because it is something that's hard to explain, like music. I mean, the thing that Lenny always said is like, how do you explain an A flat? You can't, you just have to play it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And now they are kind of looking at
So over time,
yes,
it was very hard to light. We couldn't bring in the proper lights that would allow us to be able to develop the film in the way that we wanted to. The same thing for the Osborne. We only had 4 hours in the Osborne. When my daughter takes the airplane, that was desaturated color. The rest was black and white. The second half of the movie is color film. The 1:3:3 aspect ratio is many reasons. I always saw it that way. My memory of that time period in movies which were in that aspect ratio, the halls of a conductor is always vertical, and just be able to harness the body and be able to have the baton go that high. Also, his relationship to God is something that we explore in the film with the God point of view, and that's why I always wanted that vertical sort of feeling, and also depth. And for close-ups in that 1:3:3 aspect ratio are just kind of unparalleled. And that's how I always saw the movie. I wanted to progress into 1:8:5. One of the reasons is because as he got older, his baton got longer because Lenny couldn't put his arms high enough. So he started off with no baton when he was 25, then a baton, and it just kept getting longer. And I felt like the movie has to sort of stretch out as he's sort of wasting away and stretching out. And also because is this his truth, once she's gone? Because it only goes to 1:8:5 after she dies. And also, in the 80s, that's how I remember movies, not in that 1:3:3 aspect ratio. So that's the short answer, long answer. and sort of memories of the Young People's Concert on PBS or something when I was a kid, even though it was CBS, but I think that's when I saw it was somehow played again. It was conducting, was it for me? As a kid, it was first Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry, and then it was like Armand Assante, Dudley Moore did that movie, which was the violin concerto, the Opus 35 in D major, which I tried to memorize based on that movie. And it was always conducting. But then once this property, this IP was around, and I asked if I could investigate him, it was